Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to have a personal episode, and I'm going to talk about my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, secutora in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Other personal videos, if you like the know more about me ones, I have Gregory 101. I'll put the banner for that one. I have one on why I have a predilection or proclivity toward the Latin Mass, and there's a couple other personal ones. This one's kind of a backstory as to why I love my faith so much. Now, look, every Christian is going to say that they love their faith. Okay? And certainly every identifying Catholic will say the same thing. I guess it's more of an episode as to what impelled me to not have a period of time where my faith was fallow, and to not have a period of time where I question the faith, and also to have a kind of a martial or military or militant kind of view of my faith. And all of this stems from like trauma. So you look at the difference, this is a really bad example, but you look at the difference between the United States and Canada historically. The United States was forged out of trauma, the American Revolution, for example, and the Civil War. Canada never had these formative periods, and sometimes so trauma unites and binds a country. Now you could say a lot about the United States now. it's devolving, to be honest. But in true America up until like 1950, sometimes you need trauma to strengthen things. We know that a sword gets sharper when it is forged in fire and then sharpened. So with me, it was trauma. I had a lot of trauma as a child. Namely, I was morbidly overweight, and I'll have a picture I'll put here. And the reason I was this way is because my father was a good man, but he was mercurial. And if he was drinking alcohol, he was Hyde. And when he was not drinking alcohol, he was a very kind man. He used to take me to adoration in the middle of the night. He was the coach of my soccer team. He taught me geography and anatomy and history. And I've talked about this in Gregory 101. And my mom was kind of just checked out. My mom was not a maternal woman. And she was on antidepressants most of her life. And I think it was partly to deal with my father's, because of the alcoholism. I grew up not knowing, I couldn't get like the maternal feeding, the nurturance from my mother, and my father, was up and down, up and down. So of course I turned to food, right? It was easy access, and I fed my feelings. So growing up, it was tough. I had really bad bullying, and we don't really have time to talk about it here, but definitely traumatized me, and it made me see the world in a different way. And I did lose my weight by the grace of God through hard work and so forth. And again, we really don't have time to talk about it here. And I've kept it off now 31 years, lost over 100 pounds and kept it off 31 years. And so the losing of the weight really forged my faith even more. So it was a couple of things. Like I had survivor's guilt, because near the apex of my obesity when I was 16 or 17, I was resigned to the fact that I was never going to kiss a woman, much less have sex and get married and have children. And I was suicidal, and I knew that if I didn't take my life, eventually I would, because there was no reason for me to believe that I wasn't going to end up being 300 pounds by 25, 350 pounds. I mean, there was nothing that was going to change this trajectory. So I had this kind of sadness and this bitterness. And then when I lost the weight, I saw how people treated me differently, so I became very cynical toward humanity. I also had survivor's guilt, because I knew that I lost the weight, and yes, I was running 5 miles a day, and I've done that for like 31 years. So it's not like I didn't earn it on one level, but there's a lot of obese people who try hard and don't lose the weight. So I had this survivor's guilt, like when you don't get on the plane crashes, why me? So I'd have this relationship with God, like, why did I lose the weight? and this guy didn't. Like one of my closest friends was chubby in high school. The football team convinced him to get on the football team to be an offensive lineman. Of course, that made him bigger. Then he got diabetes at 24. He lost a leg by 29. He had cancer, because cancer, of course, is connected to obesity and high sugar diet. A little later on, and he was on dialysis for 10 years, and he's dead. He's dead. He's my age, and he's dead. So I have this juxtaposition of me in my life with my friend's life who's dead, and I pray for his soul every day. And so there's this like survivor's guilt. Like, why me? But most importantly, and kind of to narrow down this episode 5 minutes in, is I'm indebted to God. And I know this. And I knew this. And when I lost my weight at 17, 18, I knew this. And I kind of made a vow to him that I would never turn my back on him. Because I know for whatever reason, God's will is mysterious. For whatever reason, he gave me this. And so I was able to have some of the experiences of life that there's no way I ever would have had I not lost my weight. And in retrospect, I'm 48 now. I without a doubt would be dead, either through suicide or just through the comorbidity that comes with obesity, had I not lost my weight. So I know this, and so it fuels my faith. And my faith is largely, like, I think people are different. I know people, like the woman I'm courting, her faith is much more based on a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, the more emotional things, the devotions, and stuff. Mine is more rooted in, has always been rooted in the knowledge of the truth, just because my knowledge of history, all my degrees in history, that the Catholic Church is the true church. So I think a lot of men are kind of like that. Our faith is not really based in emotion, because we take pride in being logical and reasonable and using our rationality and all these things like this. So my faith has always kind of been backed by history, papal history, logic, stuff like that. But I always knew, like even in my college years when I, let's be in my 20s before I got married, I was fornicating. Even during the kind of more wayward St. Augustine years, St. Ignatius of Loyola years, I knew I was never going to apostatize or leave the faith. I just knew it because I owed it to God. And not because I just owed it to God. It's kind of like the difference between a perfect contrition, a perfect confession, and an imperfect one. It's not like fear of heaven and loss of hell, but it's not just that, but I truly loved him, and I know that he gave me this gift. And so born out of this is this channel, for example. Born out of this is I have no problem laying down my life as a martyr. No problem. Because I owe it to him. And so if there's ever a situation where, and if you look at history, look at the Spanish Civil War, look at the Cristiada in Mexico only 100 years ago, look at the French Revolution, we have an episode on that. A lot of examples, Russian Revolution, where Christians are put in camps and they're told, we're going to kill your family unless you recant. We're going to kill your wife unless you recant. The episodes we did on Silence, the movie, the Scorsese movie Silence. You're going to be put in these situations. And I already know, like I talk about my favorite prayers, that's another banner I put in. Like I already have my martyr prayer. It's the Anima Christi. If I'm going to be killed privately in a cell, I'll say it in Latin. If it's in front of a bunch of people, like a firing squad, like a bunch of people, I'll say it in English because it's going to stir the people and we have to be public witnesses. So my faith, and some would say, I knew a woman who once said, like when I made that statement that I would die a martyr and I know I would never recant the faith, she said that's the devil's sin of pride, pridefulness. Like how can you say that? Maybe it is, but I'm pretty convicted, using a Protestant verb right there, I'm pretty convicted that I would never apostatize, no matter what torture and pain, because I love the faith and I owe God that. And it's important to understand that about me, and it's important to understand that about this channel. And I think that some Catholics who maybe have a relationship, like they don't have the trauma. So let's use the example of me, like in high school, like the popular kids, the good-looking girls, the popular boys. later on in life. A lot of them get overweight, like the football players, because they took all that for granted and they didn't have a workout regime, and their life was very easy. And lots of times when your life is easy spiritually or physically, you get complacent. And sometimes trauma can be good, because trauma wakes you up. Trauma gives you a certain perspective. And trauma sometimes makes you work harder for things that otherwise you would not have worked hard for. And it gives you a fresher perspective, like all the Final Destination movies, right? They're about to die and you're in a car accident. I mean, some of you might have had this. I've had this happen one time where literally my car swerved out of the way and I did not touch the steering wheel. There was another time a black widow was right in front of me and the wind was pushing it toward me, and then something pushed me away. I mean, these things I can't explain. But some of you have these experiences like, oh my God, and then you reinvestigate your life and your purpose. And with me, it was just my traumatic obesity as a child, and being given a second chance, or given the ability to have children and to be married and to experience some of the things that I would not experience. And so I listen to God. I try to hear him, like Samuel, when he calls me. And I feel that it's important that we all hear this. Not my message, but your message. Like, we all are called to follow Christ. We are all called to serve Christ. Think of the Baltimore Catechism definition of what is the meaning of life, purpose of life. To know God, to love God, and to serve love. It's such a short phrase, right? It says the saints, but it's so true. We are all called to serve God. Like we talked about in the episode on abortion, the Roe v. Wade, all the celebrities coming out for the support of that. What are you doing? What am I doing to fight against abortion? What are you doing? What am I doing to get fallen away, lapsed Christians, co-workers or whatever, or Catholics, back to the faith? There is a mission statement. We make these vows at confirmation, for example. There is an expectation that we must evangelize and preach the word. And so mine is born out of my childhood obesity and losing the weight. What is yours born out of? And there needs to be something that impels you. And look, we can all be lazy Catholics, and we all have been there to a certain point, for sure. And maybe you need a wake-up call. Maybe you need a near-death experience. Maybe you need a family member who dies, whatever it is. But we can't be complacent, because society has devolved because Christians did nothing for the last 50 years. We can blame the clergy, fine. Okay, is that really going to affect change? No. We have to take responsibility. We, as good Americans, let down our responsibility as being good citizens and being public witnesses to Christ. And so now we're behind enemy lines in a secularized anti-Christian America. And we really, on one level, only have ourselves to blame. So what do we have to do? We have to take up our cross. We have to be public witnesses on every level and witness, even if it means witnessing to martyrdom. That's what we're called to do, and we have no excuses. So in closing, this was a personal video if you wanted to know more about me and so forth. And this is really what impels me. And look, this channel, regardless if it has 100 views an episode or 100,000 views an episode, it's an apostolate. I don't care. It's going to exist as long as two things exist: YouTube and my heart beating. This channel is never going away because I owe it to God. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know if you've had a personal experience similar to mine. I'd love to hear from you. Hit the notification button so these episodes come fresh to you, and share with others. Until next time, take care. God bless.